Hello, and welcome to our webinar, How to Modernize Your Query 400 Queries, Convert Query 400 to SQL the easy way with SQL. Thank you so much for joining us. Finding a solution to help improve data access, reporting, and business intelligence can be challenging. And what we've heard from the IBM I community is that they want a solution that has the capability to capitalize on the queries they've already prepared by providing the functionality to convert those queries into the new solution. IT departments are looking for ways to accelerate the time it takes to share key information in a more modern, visual way. They want to bring meaningful results to the user community, giving them the real-time decision-making ability. My name is Stacy Jensen, and I'm the sales manager for the Business Intelligence Division here at Help Systems. I will be your host for today's webinar. Presenting today is Mike Stegman, our BI expert. Mike is a senior data access consultant with Help Systems and has been working with SQL for almost 17 years and on the IBM I since its inception since 1988. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great, Stacy. Thanks. Glad to be here. Hopefully we can show people how to modernize their Query 400s.
Great. Thanks, Mike. So I think we're ready to just jump right in. Appreciate your help today, and I'll let you take it over.
Sounds good. Thank you. Back in 1988, as a lot of you may know, IBM released the AS400. It was a computer that was built for business use from the start. And it carried with it the System 38 concept of an integrated DB2 relational database. Being built for business and having a database built into the operating system gave the AS400 a huge boost in the business world. The structure allowed the system to run without the threat of viruses, but it was still green screen. Through many upgrades and name changes, the AS400 has become the IBM Ion Power Systems. The idea of the integrated database still makes the system one of the most reliable and securable systems. The speed, the power, the functionality that has been added can keep your data in the same place, and you can use the same enterprise software. You might even use a GUI version and still have that reliability, securability, and functionality needed in today's business world for today's business professionals. If you remember back in 2011, an IBM computer named Watson was winning on Jeopardy. Well, guess what? Watson runs on a souped-up power system. Keep that in mind. A lot of people think it's an old system, right? So here are the topics we're going to cover today. Why you need to modernize, what your organization needs from data today, how to easily share your data, and then I'll wrap it up with a live SQL demonstration. There are a variety of reasons why you need to modernize your processes. One is, let's face it, millennials. Not a bad word, right? Have you ever seen the fear and confusion in the younger person's eyes when they first see a green screen? Their mind screams old system without realizing the capability the IBM I really is running for the business, right? Millennials are not. A lot of new hires, a lot of younger people, a lot of people are new to the I. May never seen the green screen AS400 application. So in order for them to take on the challenges for your organizations, they will need modern interfaces. Now, another reason is the speed of businesses and business decisions today. You snooze, you lose, right? It's an old saying, but it's having a bigger meaning in today's business. Keeping ahead of competition, keeping up with current regulations, expanding into new and growing markets, and more mean your decision makers need information when they need it. They can't wait for IT to build a big RPG report. Related to the speed of business is the ability of decision makers to access the data wherever they are, not just when they need it. So mobility. I remember the old days, hardwired terminals throughout an office or a plant or a warehouse. Not so much today. The speed of accessing data needs to be faster. IBM I queries may still use the older, slower query engine for processing. SQL data access can be done with the newer, faster SQL engine. We have a client who had a query that would take 16 hours to run. And with SQL and using the faster IBM I SQL query engine, it ran in about 3 minutes. And that was with an operating system that is now a few years old. I can't imagine how fast it would be on a new Power 9 or the newer boxes. Both the old station wagon and the new Corvette here will probably get you around, but how fast do you need to go? We have a client who had an employee who's spending half her day, 4 hours every day, to run a series of 12 dependent queries. That's dependent, right? 4 hours was the minimum. If something failed, she'd have to start all over again. With SQL, they're able to consolidate some of those views, put the rest into a SQL script, and schedule the whole job to run. Now it takes 7 minutes. So instead of 4 hours, it takes 7 minutes. Freed up her job to address other tasks. So all of this leads to time and money, faster processing without spending a lot of money. ITG has done studies over the past several years comparing the acquisition costs and the ongoing costs for disks, licensing, etc. They compared the IBM I to Wisdom SQL, Windows SQL Server, and Linux Oracle servers. The total cost of ownership is 50% lower, 50% lower on the IBM I over the other systems, not to mention the time and effort to move and convert the data and retrain your staff. So what your organization needs from data today. What are users looking for? Dashboards, specifically dashboards displaying KPIs in a graphical way. Customizable dashboards, runtime prompts so users can select their own data, drill downs into details from summary displays, data downloading to PC formats, data that can be emailed. These are some of the areas that clients tell us they need for the business user, and SQL has them all. You want to have a dashboard that refreshes every 5 minutes or so, and maybe it's on a large monitor for everyone in the plant to see what's going on. Some trucking companies have designed dashboards for their dispatchers so they can visually monitor the activity that concerns their truck movements. Dashboards have a variety of uses and designs. Basically, you can put your needs into these 4 columns. Okay, powerful views without having to write a program or make multiple passes over your data. Flexibility so that when a request changes, business users don't have to wait days or weeks. Some users want data in Excel. Some want to look at it in a browser. Some want both. With your centralized store of data of definitions, users are running the same report over the same data. And last but certainly not least is security. Even if you rely on the IBM I for the security setup, SQL will honor it. And if you use one of our security processes, that's another layer, all the way down to the field and the row level. And we talk about sharing your data. The fact that definitions are centrally stored on the IBM I, and you can use an easy-to-learn GUI interface we have called Viewpoint to create or make changes, makes what I call the share change cycle simple and short. Designers create the views or tables or dashboards, etc. The user looks at it and asks for more changes. That never happens, right? Asking for changes once they see something or additions. Designers make the change, they resave the definition, and so on. Then they're done. You don't have to recompile, you don't have to worry about tracking things, you don't have to worry about that. We have another client of ours that I worked with and created some dashboards for their users. The users kept asking for more information, Eventually they ran out of room on the dashboard, so they created more dashboards. And to assist their business users, they created a new dashboard with nothing but buttons to other dashboards. So to make sure that the users had that as a shortcut, they had that menu, if you will, as their starting point. They clicked that and off they went. But it was all running the same shared data, regardless of the interface. And the data, as you can see from our diagram here, can be coming from other databases as well. Browser access to your data is one way we make it extremely simple to share your data. Users access links or shortcuts, and the dashboards or the data They display in real-time information from a secured, centralized location on the IBM I. Sometimes users want the option of looking at the data or having it in Excel or some other PC file, PDFs, for example. The results from a toolbar from Viewpoint or SQL allow the user to choose if they would like the data exported to Excel once they've seen the data, or even before the business users has actually seen the data. They can right-click on the definition and display it right in Excel. We have an Excel add-in. The user doesn't require to open Viewpoint. The workbook stores the definition location, and it runs each time if the user would like it. And of course, pushing the data out, delivering the data in scheduled jobs, or creating files for email, things like that, right? You can all do this within Excel. Everyone likes to Excel. I was teaching a SQL class. It was out east a while back, and to a new group of users, but the organization had been using SQL for a short time before that. They had a view that they were sending out in Excel, simply for the users to get totals for certain columns. I showed them how it can be done in a view, and the users no longer needed to use Excel for this purpose. But Excel is still widely used throughout the business world, so everybody likes that interface. Nice, simple way to get your data into Excel, and a lot of options on how to do it. It's kind of the point of this slide here. Right? So now I'm going to flip over and do a live demonstration. I'm going to touch on the areas that I just covered in this presentation. Modernizing your queries, right? We're going to convert them into SQL objects. We're also going to build one from scratch. We're going to look at some things like KPIs and sharing the data, dashboards with graphics. And we're going to do different ways to do things in Excel. And along the way, I'm going to sprinkle in some extras. So, you know, as you're listening and watching, you might see some things you weren't aware of. So give me a moment to flip over. Okay, this is SQL Viewpoint. This is our GUI interface that I was talking about, right? Modern way to look at your IBM I data. Data could be from other systems as well, as I mentioned, but the definitions are stored here. These are the libraries. I use a little shortcut within here, and here we go. I'm going to import some query definitions. So I just click out to my query library. On the I have just a few that I want to look at, but I'm going to grab a couple of them. I'm going to grab these three. Use my control key. It's a Windows feature, right? Everybody should know that. And now they're SQL objects. They're still query definitions. They're left untouched, but we've converted them. And here it is in a new modern way without doing nothing but the import, right? Easy to do. You can open this up in design mode to change some of that, right? Putting a column heading that's better than derived one, maybe changing the format of the display. All you have to do is do a right click and go into design, okay? Rather than going into that, I'm gonna go into new and start one from scratch. Okay, I'm just going to start there. This is our Files and Fields tab. It's our graphical interface. I'm going to do a right click, choose database files. You can also use the toolbar. I like the right clicking area. I use another Viewpoint shortcut called favorites. I set myself up with the 5 files that I use most of the time. And I'm going to again hold down the control key and select all 3. We have a feature in Viewpoint called auto join. So the files come in already joined. Takes a step away from what I have to do. Now, if you haven't told SQL about your database files, all you have to do is click and drag field to field, and you're there, right? You could right click also on the line and look at the join options. Now, if you're using our SQL syntax, which I am, then they're the same options you have in query, inner join, partial outer, and only default. If you change it to server syntax, native IBM I, you have some other options. Now you're ready to start selecting your fields. Click and drag or double click. Double click simply throws them down to the bottom. Click and drag allows you to place them wherever you'd like. And once they're down there, you can move them just by grabbing the little header at the top and moving them left or right. Okay, again, double click just puts it at the end. Now I realize I want to grab another file. I forgot one. So I just come back over here and grab the part master. That's how simple it is. Auto join kicks in, brings in that because I want the description. Okay, and let's grab a couple extra fields here. I'll grab the list price, actual selling price, and quantity ordered. Okay. Now I'm going to create a derived or calculated field going into what we call the expression editor. So I did a right click on the last column there, open up a little window. We give you all of the fields that you have selected. We allow you to go back to the tables, to the files to get other ones if you haven't selected, and plus give you the ability to use special fields that we allow for you. And this one's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to take the quantity ordered times the actual selling price, right? Check my syntax. Since I clicked on it, I'm pretty confident it's going to be good, but it's a good idea. I don't have any functions in here, but you can use a ton of functions: substring, concatenation, case expressions for conditional logic, converting character to numeric, numeric to character, convert to date fields or time fields, right? We have that. You can do a lot of that type of functionality within your derived or calculated fields. That's where the power really comes in for SQL. Always recommended to give your derived field an alternate name in case we need to refer to it. And then this is where the column heading, the previous example when I imported the query didn't have a column heading specified, so it came in as derived, right? Now I'm going to make a change here and just change the length, the decimal length from 16.3 to 2. That's truncating, not rounding. I could have used the round function. I'm also going to change it here to currency and going to add some thousand separators, which of course in America are commas. So I'm going to put those out there. Sometimes you have to remove those thousand separators just to make your data look nicer for your users, right? Order numbers, customer numbers sometimes have that turned on at the database level, okay? I'm going to turn them off. Sometimes the fields are too small to worry about commas, so we're good there. I'm going to change the column heading for this field, which is actually the city field. It's called address 3. If I have one that I bring in, I can move it around. And I'll show you how easy it is to take it out. It's done, right? I brought in one, moved it around, took it out just to show you how it would work. Okay, now let's set up the sort order. Now the user can resort the results on their screen, but here I'm going to have it come up in the default order. So I'm setting it up as region, state, and name. Then I have my filter or my where clause down at the bottom. And you can filter off just about any data that you have access here. I have a whole bunch of functions that we're having. Mine's going to be relatively simple. I'm just going to pick the region. I'm going to pick one region equal to, and I could type it in like 10, okay? But I'm going to do that. You can do parenthetic logic. You can use ands and ors and all that kind of stuff within your where clause. I'm going to create a variable, a runtime prompt. Okay, putting an ampersand in front of a word automatically makes it a variable. And pretty simple to do. We've created that for you. I could have used a different name and it would have asked me to define it, but here it's already created for us. So now there's my prompt. I entered 10. Now I'm looking at just region 10 with all of the fields that I've put out there, including my new derived field called extended price. And what most of our customers do, and what they like, is to tweak or modify that variable. So I'm going to change the rule here to what's called a variables list and put in just 3 of the regions. Now I see just those 3 regions. Very simple. I'll run it here just to show an example for region 30. Most of our customers do like this DB list. It looks at the SQL view or a DB2 database file. Here I'm going to use a file, so I need to go to my files library. Tell it I'm looking for a file, not a SQL view. Grab the customer master in this case, which is also the one I'm using the view, and that's okay. And I grab the region field from there. Now when I hit the display, my drop-down shows me all of my regions. So it's real simple. Now I have a runtime prompt That gives me all my information. Very simple, very easy to build. Just a couple of minutes, build from scratch. Now I knew my database. I didn't have to type this out, that whole SQL, did it all in the Files and Fields tab. I'm going to save the definition because one of the things I talked about was sharing it. So now once it's saved, I'm going to call it orders 2 because I already imported the orders 1, right? So I had that one. The description, you have 120 characters. So I tell people put as much as you can out there in the description. It's very helpful for your users. Now I have it saved. Again, if I hit the display, there's my region, select a region. There's my data. Okay, now I can add things like subtotals. We have a subtotal feature. Now, because I'm in design and I've saved it once, I can do this, and I can do whenever there's a change in the state level. Now, I'm already prompting it for region, so I don't want to do a subtotal at the region level, so I'm going to add it to the state. Now, I can do a count for the state records, right? How many records are in here? I'm going to skip that though, but you can also do an average. So I'm going to pick my last numeric columns here and do sums for all of them, right? I could do an average or a min-max or count. I'm going to save the definition. Now, this is only there when you're in design mode like I am, just saying that I didn't retrieve all the records. So now I have subtotals for those last columns at the state level. So I'm going to resave it. There we go. Refresh my screen here just with a little, and there's the first one that I brought in, orders. There's orders 2, the one I just created from scratch. If I double click to run it, there's my prompt. I can pick a region, click OK. This is a different one now. I'm running for region 40, but now you still see the totals because it's out there in the definition. So if I run this from the browser, from viewpoint, I will see those out there. All right. Now, a couple of other views. These are a little more complex. That one is relatively simple, right? Not always is the data just sitting there waiting for you. A lot of times you have to do some calculations, right? Well, SQL allows that. You can see here we're using what's called a union, right? Looks kind of complicated, but again, I can use the Files and Fields tab. I can put a lot of things out there. I can do it from here and do a lot of copy and pastes, make it, and then just make some little changes. What comes up here for the user's standpoint looks relatively simple. It's relatively small, but anyone who's familiar with doing a cash flow know that there's a little work involved, but it wasn't that difficult. Here's another one called subquery, right? If I look at this one, here it is in the SQL. I want where the amount due field from my customer master is greater than the average of the amount due. Well, in order to get that, I have to add another select, which is called a subquery within the where clause. But when you think about it, there's different types of subqueries you can use. This one's relatively simple, but the fact that we can do it is pretty cool, pretty handy. It appears down there in my where clause. If I go to my expression editor for where, under where having, scroll down, you can see that there are other types of subqueries. Okay, so I display this one here. This one again is just showing customer information, but where their amount due is greater than the average of all my customers' amount due. So there's a lot of power that you have. Now, a lot of times what you might need to do is, display the data into Excel, save the results as a PC file. This is where I mentioned early on during the PowerPoint that you don't even have to go to the toolbar of the displayed results. You can do it right from a right click. Okay, you can do that. Now, sometimes what you need to do is a little bit more work with your data, right? That's where scripts or script views come into play. Script views have the same options as scripts, creating PC files, emailing as PC files, displaying the results in Excel, things like that. A script is basically run or submit. That's where you're going to do you can do your emails, you can do your creating physical files, you can create PC files out on the IFS. You can use IBM commands. This is what a script would look like. This one's actually pulling data from 3 different systems. I mentioned we have access to different systems. So my first SQL command is called execute. I'm running a view that's pulling IBM I data out of my DB2, doing a little override there. Then I'm doing another SQL execute, running a second view, which is actually pulling SQL Server data, Microsoft SQL Server data. I'm adding it to the same physical file or work file that I'm working with. My third one is pulling in Oracle data. Same execute, slightly different parameters just to show you the flexibility and the power that's available. The last one runs a combined view, which has a prompt, how the user wants it sorted. I can have a sort option, so I don't have to hard code it into the definition, or the user doesn't have to do it after the fact. Okay, within the script, I can do step mode or run mode. Step mode walks you through a piece at a time. Run mode just runs the whole thing, and there's my Bear, Able, and Cook data coming from 3 different systems. Bear from IBM I, DB2, Able from SQL Server, Oracle has Cook data. But the results, the user sees it in one, and I can save it right there on the toolbar. Say, take me to Excel, right? I can go to PDF, RTF for Word, comma delimited. I can add subtotals. I can do different things like that within there. If I wanted to add some of the subtotals, I'd do it in the final view here in that combo cus. I'd open it up like I did previously in design and then add them in there, so it would already be out there. Now let's go in and do a little bit of work on our dashboard, okay? New dashboard. So what we're gonna do is create some graphs and things over your data. First thing you have to do is set up your data. I like to use Snap to Grid. It gives me these little dots on here, which helps me to line things up a little bit better. And then I'm gonna insert. It doesn't matter to SQL how you're doing it. I'm adding a text box first. Why? Because I like to. I'm a little particular that way. I like to have a label out there first. I don't like the border, but that's me. So I now have a text box where I can move it around, size it, do whatever I want. Okay, now let's select some SQL data. So insert SQL object. First, I'm going to go out and go to my business intelligence library and run the one that we just brought in. Okay, this is our prompt. It's going to ask us an important question here. Do you want to save that value with the dashboard? Selecting no will prompt the user. Most of the time you want to say no, but there are times when you want to say yes, right? Maybe you're building a separate dashboard for somebody and they don't want to be prompted, just hard code it to bring in a particular regions worth of data. Resize the window. Now that's a lot of data, right? So it's probably not something I want to create a graph or something over. So I'm going to bring in another view here. I'm going to go to a work library. This one's called AR. This is a summary level view. It's using the sum function, SUM. You can see there's some colors out there and some subtotals out there. And that's great if you're going to display the data, but sometimes what you're going to do is just display graphics with this, right? Some charts or gauges. So I'm going to highlight my aging columns here, 30, 60, 90, and over 90, and click the graph button. And then position and size my graph. And depending on your needs, it's coming up exactly what I selected. So I have my 4 pieces down at the bottom and then my regions as different colors. Now, if I change the series order from row to column, now I have my regions down at the bottom and my aging are as different colors. So depending on what the user needs to see, you can flip those around. You can also change the chart type and change some of the things using the graph control, right? So I can turn it on 2-dimensional. I kind of like 3-dimensional for this one, so I'm going to leave it as 3-dimensional, right? Depending on your type of graph, you get different functions here. Horizontal, nah, I like it vertical, right? You make your decisions as you're going along. So as a designer, maybe you're making a decision for the user, at least initially, or you got input from the user, the person going to be running this at the end. Sometimes they're right here with you, right? Sometimes they're doing it themselves. So it really is a matter of what you want to see. Move the legend around, you can change the font on the legend, you can do some other setting, all within that toolbar. I like to turn off the toolbar. That's, again, personal choice, just what I like to do. You can also hide this menu toolbar so they can't do anything once they display it, and you can hide the border. I kind of like hiding the borders for some of my charts out there. It's this blue portion around it. Makes it kind of nice to hide that guy. All right. I'm going to do another one here. I'm going to this time do an insert of a gauge. We have different types of gauges you can select. Dials, right? Different types of dials we have. We have horizontal thermometer type and vertical. We have digital readouts and then custom images. I'm going to choose a digital readout here. Now, what's nice about this is I highlight the data and it populates right into that value. I don't have to type anything. I'm going to change transparency. I don't like showing a border. I'm going to make it black. So I type a B to make it black. Remove the pennies. Make it no pennies out there, whole dollars, right? Again, no border. Finish. And now I have a gauge. Again, it's a little bit of my side. I like to label everything, right? So what is this number? Well, I have to tell it's a total AR amount, right? It's my total AR amount. Again, I'm going to turn off the border, change the font of it, make it a little bit bigger than the default there. Perfect. There we go. And then I can move that a little bit closer, center it. Now, if I wanted to, I can actually highlight it. You don't want to X out of the data because that'll take away that other portion, but I can hide it and I can bring it back if I go, oh, I need to make something else off of it, right? So click hide it and it's gone. You can also insert other things. I mentioned that buttons, one of our customers, or several of our customers have menu type dashboards with nothing but buttons. So you label the button. This one's going to be an email of accounts receivable report. Okay, change the color, change the font of the label if you want. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Again, if you make them too big, the font and the buttons, you run out of real estate, but you know, it's up to you. I'm going to tell it to do AR, same one that's on the screen here, but now my option is going to be to email. And if I leave the two blank, it's going to, the email to there, it's going to prompt me when I clicked on the button. So here's the AR report. I can rename the attachment file. I'm going to keep it the same. Okay, gotta type it right, typos. And I'm going to choose Excel, right? So now I have a button right on my dashboard. The dashboard can be run from Viewpoint or from the browser once I save it. So I position, size my button, put it anywhere I want, right? And I could create multiple buttons, right? Create multiple SQL objects, depending on what you want out there. You saw some of those screenshots, the ones that I had saved. Now, those are from the browser. If you want to run a dashboard from a browser, you want to save it as a System I object, put it into a library, and that's okay because it's going to be secured using your IBM I security. You can back it up using your normal backups. And users can still create a shortcut, whether from the browser or from Viewpoint, and run it right from their desktop. Okay, I did typo in the name. So one of the nice things when you're using a Windows tooling, say I put dash R instead of dash, I can just rename that. Just go right to my library where it was saved in, filter my list. There it is right there. Right click, rename. Again, Windows functions, right? Easy to do. If you know your Windows, if you're Windows compliant, I guess you can say, if you know your Windows skills, you're ahead of the game already, right? So here's one that is a menu dashboard, right? So I'm going to run this from my desktop. Now, because it's running off the I, it is asking me to log on. Good idea to have that. Not a good idea not to have it. There's my dashboard. There's one of them, right? Just a series of buttons. I can go to data. I can go to the dashboards. A lot of things I can do within here. Okay. There's my link. Could be a shortcut, which is what I ran. It could also have been a link in my own HTML page. Could have been a lot of things. Here's one of my dashboards. I showed this one on the PowerPoint, right? But now here it is running interactively. I have a pie chart. I can do save results right from here down to Excel, right? Or another PC format. I can do drill downs. I can print. I can email right from here, again, as Excel if I wanted to. Talk about how easy things are getting to Excel, right? Can't get much easier. I have buttons that could take me to other dashboards or to other data, right? Here's another dashboard. It's completely different. Different sets of data, different bits of information, buttons, gauges, one graph, that kind of thing, right? Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. Again, I have the toolbar right there where I can save the data. Nice, relatively easy way to run it. Now I'm going to show you the plugin. So I have this workbook, Excel workbook, right here on my desktop. I'm going to open it. And it's asking me, do you want to refresh the viewpoint in data that's embedded in this workbook? I could click no and it'll leave what I have out there, but I'm going to click yes. Now here's my prompt, because the one that's running right behind us here has a prompt. And if you look real quickly, it's going to be the Western states, or I'm going to pick more Midwestern states. So now the data changes. My subtotal, my total gets pushed down, my percentage of total gets recalculated, my chart gets totaled. This is new data, orders is new data, and this one I call a data dump because I built an Excel pivot table off of that data. Relatively simple one, but I use that data, so now it's an Excel pivot table using fresh IBM I data. And as you saw, it didn't have to be IBM, could have been coming from SQL Server or Oracle. So how do we add those? Well, here I'm going to start a new sheet. I'm going to go to my viewpoint toolbar up there, and when you install viewpoint, you have an option to install the add-in, and I have here. So now it's my default system called Wisdom. Now I'm just running this, right? So I would have to go to whoever designed it and say, what's the library? I can also browse for it, but I could type it in. Same with the browse for the actual object name. These are the SQL objects in that library that I have authority to. I'm going to pick orders 2, which is the one that we created earlier. And I can, if I wanted to, pick and choose the columns. So I can remove them once they're into Excel, right? But here I can change it before it even comes down. You know, I could if I wanted to. I'm going to leave them all this time. There's that refresh data. If I leave that checked, that's why it asks when I open this. There's my prompt for my region. I'll leave it as region 10. There it is. Now I like to make my Excel columns a different color. So I'm going to highlight those and just make them a gray color. I also like to add borders around them like so. And when you save the workbook, those will be retained. All of that setting will be retained. Nice, easy way to do your dashboards. Okay, so what did we cover? Well, I'm going to do a quick little recap here. So whether you're converting IBM I queries or building from scratch, you can create powerful yet flexible results. Customizable dashboards allow you to create and share KPIs from Viewpoint or from a browser. Dashboards can combine the key data that you need all in one place. And you saw how easy it was to take data into Excel. So empowerment is making the information easy and flexible for your business users. They will be relying less on IT for reports, especially program reports, and IT can be more productive. Using SQL and the IBM I together provide that peace of mind with the reliability, securability, and scalability of the IBM I and the power you have there. So there's no doubt that SQL is the solution. It has many advanced functions for you when you need them. And we haven't touched on all of them, but these are a lot of them that we've seen there.
Mike, thanks so much for sharing that information, and nice job with the demonstration.
Thank you.
To our viewers, thank you for viewing our webinar today. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great day.